Mira sat on the soft blue seat near the window of the orbital train. Outside the window, stars shone like tiny diamonds, scattered across the endless dark sky. The train was moving from Orbital Station 4 to Earth's main docking hub. It was always full at this hour, when workers, students, and travelers came and went between planets and stations. She held a small paper bag on her lap. Inside was a sandwich she had made at home, wrapped in foil. She planned to eat it at her lab later. Mira worked as a lab technician for a small research company that tested water samples from the space stations. The job was not exciting, but it paid enough for her small apartment and her simple life. Today, the train was even more crowded than usual. People stood shoulder to shoulder, some holding onto the metal poles, others balancing near the doors. The low hum of the train filled the silence, mixed with quiet voices, the soft beep of people's comes, and the faint music from someone's old headphones. Mira looked around and noticed a man standing close to her seat. He looked tired, with a travel-worn coat and a bag slung over his shoulder. But what caught her attention was the small boy in his arms. The boy's head rested on the man's shoulder. His little arms were wrapped around the man's neck and his eyes were half closed with sleep. Mira's eyes met the man's for a moment. His eyes were warm, but carried the kind of tiredness she understood. She knew that look-long shifts, heavy work, and the weight of caring for someone more important than yourself. She saw it every day in her own mirror. Without thinking twice, Mira stood up. She gently touched the man's arm. "Excuse me," she said softly. "Please take my seat, you and your boy." The man looked surprised at first. Then he gave her a small, grateful smile. His voice was gentle when he answered, "Are you sure? You'll have to stand." "It's okay," Mira said with a little smile of her own. "You both need it more than I do." She stepped aside, holding her paper bag close to her chest as the man carefully sat down. He shifted his son onto his lap. The boy stirred a little but did not wake up fully. His small fingers held onto his father's shirt. "Thank you," the man said. His voice was calm but carried a weight, as if he had not said those words to anyone in a long time. "My name is Aaron. This is Leo." Mira nodded. "I'm Myra. He's adorable." At her words, Leo peeked open one sleepy eye and then closed it again, pressing his face into his father's chest. Aaron gave a soft laugh. It was quick, but it made Mira smile too. It was rare to see real warmth in the cold tunnels of the station. "Trains, you're very kind, Mira," Aaron said. "Not many people would stand in this rush." "It's just a seat," she said, brushing it off. But inside, a small warmth spread in her chest. It had been a long time since a stranger looked at her like she mattered. The train rolled on through the dark sky, passing by blinking lights of other cargo ships and shuttles. Mira held onto the cold metal pole, steadying herself as the train swayed. She could hear a baby crying somewhere at the other end of the car, but here it felt peaceful. She noticed Aaron's coat. It was clean but old, patched at the elbow. His bag was made of tough cloth, the kind you used when you didn't plan to buy a new one soon. But his shoes were polished, and his son wore a soft little jacket that looked new. She liked that. A father who made sure his son was warm first. Minutes passed in silence. The boy's tiny hand dropped a toy, a small plastic starship that clattered to the floor. Mira bent down quickly before it could roll away under someone's feet. She picked it up and handed it back to the little boy. Leo woke up just enough to see her. He took the toy with small fingers and gave her a shy smile, one of those smiles only children give, pure and bright. Mira felt her heart warm again. "Say, thank you, Leo," Aaron whispered to his son. Leo's voice was soft, sleepy. "Thank you." "You're welcome," Mira said. The train began to slow as it neared the next stop. People shuffled, getting ready to step off. Mira moved to the side, letting an older woman pass. She looked back at Aaron and Leo one last time. She thought about saying goodbye but decided against it. After all, she would never see them again. The city was too big, the stars too wide. This was just a tiny moment, a kind one, but it would pass like all others. But as the doors opened, Leo reached out with his toy starship. Mira looked at him, confused. "For you," the boy said. Mira laughed softly. "No, that's yours. You need your spaceship." But Leo pushed it into her hand with surprising strength for a sleepy child. Aaron gave her an apologetic but thankful look. "He wants you to have it. He says you saved it," Aaron said. Mira looked at the small toy. It was blue and silver, a little scratched but clearly loved. She nodded, accepting it carefully as if it were made of glass. "Thank you, Leo. I'll keep it safe," she said. The father and son watched her step out onto the platform. As the train doors closed, Mira lifted the toy ship and waved it at them. Leo smiled again, pressing his face against the window. Aaron gave her a nod, a small thank you that felt bigger than any word. Mira tucked the toy starship into her pocket. As she walked toward her lab, she did not know why her heart felt lighter. It was just a seat on a crowded train. Just a tiny spaceship. Just a father and son she would never meet again, or so she thought. A week passed since Mira gave up her seat on the train. Life went back to its usual routine: early mornings, crowded trains, hours in the cold lab. She worked with quiet focus, testing samples from the water systems of the orbital stations. Every night she returned home to her small apartment. She would place the little toy starship on her bedside table before going to sleep. It reminded her that kindness still mattered in the cold world above Earth. One rainy morning, Mira sat at her lab desk wearing her plain white coat. She was testing a water sample from Station 6 when her supervisor, Mr. Bellin, walked in. He was a thin man with gray hair and glasses that always slid down his nose. "Mira," Mr. Bellin said, tapping on her desk with his pen. "There's someone here to see you." Mira looked up, surprised. No one ever came to see her. She barely had friends outside the lab, and her family lived on Earth's surface. She removed her gloves and followed Mr. Bellin down the long, clean hallway. At the front reception area, she saw a young woman in a smart blue suit standing by the door. The woman had a shiny badge on her jacket that said Astra Core. Mira's eyes widened. Astra Core was the biggest deep space mining company in the belt. Everyone knew their ships and stations. They found rare minerals and fuel that kept the stations running. They were powerful and rich. Mira felt small just thinking about it. The woman stepped forward and gave Mira a polite smile. "Miss Mira, I'm Anel. I work for Mr. Aaron of Astra Core. He would like to speak with you." Mira blinked. "Aaron?" Her mind went back to the tired father on the train. The man with the soft voice and the sleepy boy. It couldn't be the same person, could it? "Is there a problem?" Mira asked carefully. Anel shook her head. "No problem at all. Mr. Aaron wishes to thank you in person for your kindness. He's waiting outside, if you have a moment." Mira felt her heart beat faster. Mr. Bellin gave her a puzzled look but said nothing. Mira nodded. She took off her lab coat and followed Anel out of the lab building. Outside, a sleek black company shuttle hovered near the landing platform. It looked out of place next to the old cargo trucks and worker pods. The side door opened smoothly. Mira's breath caught when she saw Aaron sitting inside. He was dressed differently this time, in a neat gray suit with a small silver pin on the collar. His eyes were the same, kind but sharp. Beside him sat Leo, wide awake today, playing with another toy spaceship. "Hello, Mira," Aaron said. His voice was warm and calm. "I hope you don't mind me calling you out like this." Mira shook her head, still unsure what to say. "It's okay." "Hello, Leo." Leo looked up and waved shyly. Mira's heart softened again. Aaron gestured to the seat across from him. "Please sit. I promise I won't keep you long." Mira stepped inside the shuttle. feeling the soft leather under her palms as she sat. The door closed quietly, blocking out the wind and rain. "I wanted to thank you properly," Aaron said. "You didn't know me. You didn't know my son. But you offered your seat and your kindness. It meant more than you think." Mira felt her cheeks warm. It was nothing special. "To you, maybe," Aaron said, his eyes calm but serious. "But to us, it was rare. In my world, people often forget to be human." Mira looked at him properly now. He did not look like any CEO she had imagined. He seemed tired but strong. His eyes held a quiet power, one that came not from money, but from years of hard work. "Why did you really call me here?" Mira asked softly. Aaron smiled. He leaned back and looked at Leo, who was busy flying his toy ship through the air. "I want to offer you a job," Aaron said simply. Myra's mouth fell open. "A job? Doing what?" Aaron nodded to Anel, who handed Mira a small tablet. On the screen was a logo, Project Hell is 3. Beneath it were pictures of an icy gray moon, plans for green domes, blue lakes under transparent shells. "We are starting a new mission," Aaron said. "A colony on Hellas 3, a moon far from here. It's cold and empty now, but we want to change that. Make it warm, make it alive. Grow food, build homes, bring families. We need people who remember what kindness looks like, who think about others first." Mira looked at the tablet, then at Aaron. "I'm just a lab technician. I test water. I'm not special." Aaron shook his head slowly. "You are exactly who we need. We need people who care about small things, who protect life drop by drop. You have skills we can use testing, caring, finding solutions. You'd lead a small team to help set up clean water and food labs on Hellas 3. Mira's heart beat faster. A colony on another world? She had never dreamed of leaving the stations. She had never even traveled beyond the belt. "I don't know," she said softly. "I'm not brave like that." Aaron looked at her with gentle eyes. "You were brave. When you stood up for us on that train, that's enough for me." Beside him, Leo tugged at Myra's sleeve. When she looked down, he placed his tiny toy spaceship in her hand again. "Come with us?" he asked in his small voice. Mira felt something inside her chest shift. She looked at the toy ship, scratched and painted with stars. She looked at Aaron, who sat waiting, offering her a future she never imagined. "If I say yes," she asked, her voice small, "what happens to my old life?" Aaron smiled kindly. "Your old life will wait here. But you will build a new one out there, with purpose, with family, with people who care." Outside the shuttle window, the rain still fell on the gray docks. Workers in heavy coats moved cargo. Ships came and went. It all looked so ordinary, so small compared to the moon on the tablet screen. Mira closed her hand around the toy spaceship. She took a deep breath. "All right," she said. "I'll come see it. But I make no promises." Aaron's smile grew wider, almost a laugh. "That's more than enough, Mira." Leo clapped his tiny hands, happy with her answer. Mira felt her heart settle, even as it raced. She did not know what waited for her on that distant moon. But for the first time in years, the stars outside did not feel so cold. They felt like home waiting to be made. The small shuttle carrying Mira moved smoothly through the dark sky above Earth. Below her feet, the world she knew grew smaller, while ahead, the unknown waited like an open door. She sat near the window, staring out at the wide sea of stars. The toy starship from Leo rested in her hand. She held it tightly, as if it could steady her shaking heart. Beside her sat Aaron, quiet but watchful. Across from her, Leo leaned against the seat, half asleep again. His small head bobbed with the soft hum of the shuttle. Mira still could not believe she had said yes. Just 2 days ago, she was in her tiny lab, counting drops under a microscope. Now she was wearing a new uniform with Astra Core stitched on the sleeve. Anel, Aaron's assistant, had come to her apartment early that morning to help her pack. There was not much to pack. 2 bags were enough for her entire life. The shuttle curved toward the biggest docking hub above Earth. Huge ships floated nearby like silent metal whales. Lights blinked on their long bodies, marking cargo bays, living quarters, and engines. One ship, larger than all the others, caught Mira's eye. Its name shone in silver letters along its side, Endeavor. "That's our ride," Aaron said, following her gaze. "The Endeavor will take us to Hellas 3. Mira nodded but did not speak. Her mind was too busy with questions she could not ask out loud yet. Why her? Why trust her with something so big? What if she failed? When the shuttle docked with the Endeavor, Mira followed Aaron and Leo through long metal corridors. Crew members passed them, busy but friendly. Many nodded at Aaron with respect. Some even stopped to greet Leo, giving the boy soft pats on the head or small candy from their pockets. Mira noticed how Leo's eyes lit up each time someone smiled at him. Inside the ship's main hall, Mira's eyes widened. It was huge, like a small town inside metal walls. She saw glass windows showing the stars, green plants growing along the walls in neat lines, and children playing near benches where families sat together. "Is this a ship or a city?" Mira whispered. Aaron chuckled softly, "A bit of both. On missions this long, people need to feel like they're not just passengers, they're part of something alive." Anel appeared beside them, tablet in hand. "Myra, I'll take you to your quarters. We have a team meeting in an hour. Mr. Aaron will join you soon." Mira glanced at Aaron. He nodded. "Go on. Rest a bit, then meet your team. They're waiting to know who you are." She followed Anel down another hallway. Her room was small but warm, with a bed, a desk, and a round window that showed a slice of stars. On the desk sat a welcome kit, new clothes, a badge, and a datapad full of files. "About Hellas 3. Make yourself comfortable," Anel said kindly. "If you need anything, just ask." When Anel left, Mira sat on the bed. She touched the small toy starship on the blanket. She thought of her tiny apartment, her old lab, the noise of the train. Now she was on a giant ship, about to fly past the orbit she had never crossed before. A knock pulled her from her thoughts. A young man peeked inside. He had dark hair and wore a blue jumpsuit with a small tool belt. "Hi," he said with a shy smile. "You're Mira, right?" "I'm Rain. I work with water systems. Mr. Aaron said you might want to see the hydro labs." Mira nodded slowly. She stood and grabbed the toy starship, slipping it into her pocket. "Lead the way." Rain walked her through another maze of halls until they reached a bright room full of tanks, pipes, and screens. Clear water bubbled through transparent tubes. Mira felt her shoulders relax. This place smelled like home clean, like the lab she knew. "This is where we test and store the recycled water," Rain explained. "Once we land on Hellas 3, we'll build bigger tanks, filters, and grow beds. Mr. Aaron says you'll lead the setup." Mira ran her fingers along a pipe, feeling its steady vibration. Here, at least she understood the rules. Water flowed or it didn't. Filters worked or they didn't. No secret meanings. No surprises. Rain showed her how they tracked minerals, filtered waste, and used algae beds to keep the water fresh. Mira asked questions, her mind already solving small problems. She spotted loose seals, air bubbles, tiny leaks. When they finished, Rain looked at her with wide eyes. "You're good. Most people don't see these things so quickly." "I've been doing it a long time," Mira said with a small smile. "Water listens if you do." Rain laughed. "That's what Mr. Aaron said about you, that you care about small things. That's why he trusts you." Mira paused at that. Did she really deserve that trust? She pushed the thought away for now. Later, in the meeting room, Mira sat with 5 other people scientists, engineers, and 2 farmers who knew how to grow plants in domes. Aaron stood at the front, Leo sitting on a chair beside him, swinging his legs. "This team," Aaron said, his voice calm but strong, "will make Hellas 3 a place worth calling home. You are here because you know how to build life where there is none." He looked at Mira. She sat up straighter. "Mira will lead the clean water project," Aaron continued. "Without clean water, there's no food, no families, no future. She knows how to listen to people and to water. That is why she is here." The team clapped politely. Mira felt heat in her cheeks. She forced herself to look around. These people would be her partners, her friends, maybe even her family for the days ahead. After the meeting, Aaron found her near the window. Stars glowed softly outside the glass. Leo stood nearby, pretending to fly his toy ship around her knees. "Are you ready for this?" Aaron asked gently. Mira looked out at the endless dark sprinkled with tiny lights. She thought about the lab she left, the small apartment, the empty seat she had given up that day on the train. One small choice. One tiny kindness. She looked at Aaron, then down at Leo, who was busy making soft rocket noises. "I don't know if I'm ready," Mira said honestly. "But I'm here." Aaron smiled, and in that quiet smile, she found a piece of courage she didn't know she had. "Then that's enough," Aaron said. Above them, the Endeavor drifted silently toward the edge of Earth's reach, carrying them all toward a cold moon waiting for life. The Endeavor drifted through space like a silent whale. Days passed, but for Mira, time felt different now. She woke every morning in her small cabin, the stars bright outside her window. She spent her days walking through metal halls, learning every pipe, tank, and filter on the ship. Rain showed her how the backup water system worked. Sana, one of the food engineers, taught her about the algae beds they would set up on Hellas 3. The farmers, older men named Kio and Bryn, told her stories about growing carrots and beans inside glass domes, where sunlight never touched the soil. Each story made Mira's mind spin with ideas. She took notes on her tablet every night before falling asleep with Leo's toy starship beside her pillow. Sometimes, late at night, she would find Leo waiting outside her door. He would knock softly and hold out his tiny hand. Mira never asked why. She simply opened the door and sat with him until he fell asleep beside her on the bed. His small, warm presence calmed her thoughts better than any plan or chart. On the 10th day, the Endeavor slowed as it reached Hellas 3. Mira stood by the window, eyes wide. Below, the moon looked cold and lonely. Gray rocks, deep shadows, and white patches of frozen water under thin sunlight. It did not look like a place where families could live. But she reminded herself of what Aaron always said: "We build warmth where there is none." That morning, the crew gathered at the airlock. Mira wore a thick suit with her name printed on the chest. Aaron stood beside her, helping Leo into a tiny version of the same suit. Leo giggled as Aaron fixed the helmet, his small hands grabbing Mira's arm for balance. "Are you scared?" Leo asked Mira, his voice small inside the helmet. Mira looked at the boy's big, curious eyes. She wanted to say yes, yes. She was scared of the empty world waiting outside the door. But instead, she smiled through the clear glass. "Not if you're with me." Leo laughed and gave her a thumbs up. The doors opened. A hiss of air escaped as the crew stepped onto the rough gray ground. For a moment, Mira froze at the edge of the ramp. The cold wind hit her helmet. The ground crunched under her boots. Above, stars looked brighter than ever in the thin sky. This was it. No walls, no metal corridors, just endless cold and the hope they carried inside their chests. Aaron placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "Welcome home, Mira." She took a breath. The word home echoed in her mind like a promise. She stepped down the ramp and touched Hellas 3's surface for the first time. Behind her, workers rolled out crates full of tools, seeds, pipes, and small machines. The farmers tested the ground near the landing site, pressing gloved hands into the icy dirt. Sana was already taking soil samples and humming to herself as she labeled bags. Mira's job was clear. She needed to find the best place for clean water. She and Rain walked around the landing zone with scanners. They mapped ice patches hidden under rocks. Each scan showed blue lines on her tablet, tiny rivers frozen in place for millions of years. Mira smiled as she studied the map. So much water, just waiting to flow again. In the evening, the team set up the first dome, a small bubble made of clear panels and metal frames. Inside, it was warmer than the frozen wind outside. The floor was still rough, but they laid down mats and blankets. Leo ran around happily, pretending his toy starship could fly between the crates. Sometimes he stopped near Mira, handing her imaginary reports about space pirates or monster aliens. She would salute him seriously and tell him his captain. Work was very important. After the first day's work, Mira sat on an upturned crate, helmet off, breathing the filtered air inside the dome. Aaron sat across from her, a warm drink in his hand. Outside, she could see the rough gray world through the clear panels. Cold, empty, yet somehow full of hope now that people had arrived. "You did well today," Aaron said softly. Mira shrugged. "We only found ice. The real work starts tomorrow." Aaron nodded. "True, but finding ice means finding life. It's a good first step." Leo, half asleep, crawled onto Mira's lap. She held him carefully as his small head rested on her shoulder. For a moment, the dome felt more like a home than any place Mira had ever known. The hum of the filters, the soft lights, the steady breathing of a child who trusted her completely. "Why did you choose me, Aaron?" Mira asked suddenly. She had carried the question for days. Now, with the cold locked outside and the warmth of Leo in her arms, she needed the answer. Aaron looked at her for a long moment. His eyes were tired but gentle. "Because you remind me of what we're building here," he said. "A place where small kindness changes everything. On that train, you did not know us. You did not expect anything back. You gave what you could. This moon, these people, need that same heart." Mira did not know what to say, so she stayed quiet, listening to Leo's soft breathing. Aaron reached out and gently fixed the blanket around Leo's shoulders. Then he looked at Mira again. "Thank you for staying, for trusting us, for trusting yourself." Mira smiled, tired but lighter than she had felt in years. "Thank you for not leaving my life that day." Aaron laughed softly. "I think it was Leo who decided that." Outside the dome, the cold wind blew across the rocks. But inside, warmth grew one small step at a time. Mira closed her eyes, letting herself rest at last. Tomorrow they would dig ice, build tanks, run pipes, and test filters. Tomorrow she would guide her small team to make sure not a single drop was wasted. But tonight, under a dome on a lonely moon, she held the sleeping boy and the tiny toy starship in her hand. She knew this was only the beginning, but for the first time in her life, she was not afraid of tomorrow. Morning came quietly on Hellas 3. The cold sunlight fell through the dome panels, touching the sleeping faces inside. Mira woke first. She moved slowly so Leo would not wake as he lay curled beside her. She covered him with a blanket and stood up, stretching her arms and rolling her shoulders. Her back ached from sleeping on crates and floor mats, but her mind was already busy with plans for the day. She slipped outside the dome, pulling on her thick suit and helmet. The air outside was still too thin and sharp to breathe. Frost crunched under her boots. She saw Rain and the other workers unloading metal pipes from a transport sled. A few engineers were setting up large solar panels to catch the weak sunlight and power the filters. Rain waved when he saw her. "Morning, Mira. Ready to dig?" Mira nodded, lifting her scanner and checking the ice map she had saved on her tablet. Blue lines glowed under the rocky surface. They looked like veins inside a sleeping giant. She pointed to a spot a few meters away from the dome. "We start there. If we can dig down and hit that ice pocket, we'll have our first clean source." Rain grinned. "You're the boss." They worked all morning. The drills roared through the frozen ground, sending fine white dust into the air. Pipes clanged as the team laid them down, connecting each new piece like puzzle parts. The crew moved like ants, some digging, some checking seals, others making sure the filters were ready once the water started flowing. Mira crawled into the narrow pit they had dug. She ran her gloved hand over the frost, brushing away loose rock. She checked each connection twice, then 3 times. She knew how unforgiving water could be if it slipped through cracks. While she worked, her mind wandered. She remembered her small lab back on Earth, how quiet it was, how lonely. Here, the cold bit her fingers, but voices warmed the air. Leo's laughter, Rain's jokes, Bryn's soft humming while he planted the first seeds in tiny soil beds near the dome dot at midday. Aaron came to check on the team. He wore a simple work suit like everyone else, his helmet tucked under his arm. "How's it going?" he asked. Mira crawled out of the pit, her face dusty but her eyes shining. "We're almost ready. If the ice pocket holds, we can test the filter by sunset." Aaron looked down at the pit and back at Myra. "Good, and you? Are you holding up?" Mira laughed a short, surprised sound. She wiped sweat from her forehead with the back of her glove. "I think I'm stronger than I knew." Aaron smiled, proud. He looked around at the busy team, the half-buried pipes, the humming machines. "You're making this place breathe, Mira." Just then, a small figure ran from the dome. Leo, wearing his thick suit, came bouncing over the rocks. He carried his toy starship, waving it above his head. When he reached Mira, he pushed the toy into her hands. "For you," he said through the speaker in his helmet. "It's good luck." Mira held the little starship, turning it over in her palm. She looked at Leo, then at Aaron, then back at the tiny toy. Somehow, it reminded her what they were really building, something that would outlast all of them. "Thank you, Captain Leo," she said with a mock salute. Leo giggled and ran back to the dome to tell the farmers about his big mission. As the sun dipped lower, the team tested the pipes. Water, cold and clear, trickled through the new system. It ran into the first small filter tank. Mira checked the sensors, no leaks, no blockages. The hum of the pumps was the sweetest sound she had heard in weeks. Rain cheered. Bryn clapped his hands and shouted, "First drop! First drop!" Mira only smiled, her hand resting on the cold pipe. In that moment, the endless gray moon felt alive for the first time. Inside the dome that night, the team gathered for dinner, warm packets of soup, bread, and small cups of tea. Leo sat on Myra's lap, half asleep again. His toy starship was now clipped to her belt like a lucky charm. Aaron sat beside them. He watched Mira help Leo drink his tea. "You know," he said softly, "when Leo's mother was alive, she always believed in small starts. She said even the biggest cities start." With a single light, Mira looked at him, surprised. Aaron rarely spoke about Leo's mother. His eyes were warm but distant, caught in memory. "She would have liked you," Aaron continued. "You remind me of her, kind, careful, brave when you need to be." Mira did not know what to say. She only held Leo a little closer, careful not to wake him. After dinner, she sat outside the dome for a while. The cold did not bother her much tonight. She looked at the frozen ground, the pipes that now carried clean water under her feet, the small dome glowing softly like a lantern in the dark. She realized that home was not made of walls or roofs. It was made of warmth, one drop of water at a time, one soft promise that life could grow even here. When she finally went inside, Aaron was waiting near her mat. He handed her a mug of warm tea. For a moment, they just stood there, two people who once shared a train ride and a small act of kindness, now standing together on a moon far from home. "Rest well, Mira," Aaron said. She nodded. "Good night." As she lay down, Leo's small hand found hers in the dark. The toy starship rested on her chest. She closed her eyes and dreamed of rivers flowing under gray rocks and children laughing in green gardens they had not yet built. And when she woke the next morning, she knew she would make sure every promise in that dream would come true, one pipe, one seed, one drop at a time. Morning on Heli's 3 came quietly. Frost still covered the ground outside the dome, but inside, small sounds filled the air, boots stepping on metal floors, pipes humming, voices low but warm. Mira woke before the others. She sat up, careful not to wake Leo, who was curled up near her side as always. She smiled as she brushed a bit of hair off his forehead. Then she stood and put on her work suit, ready for the day. Outside the dome, the sky was a soft gray. Mira joined Bryn at the new greenhouse dome. This one was bigger than the first shelter, but still small compared to what they hoped to build. It stood like a bubble of hope in the empty land, panels catching the weak sun. Bryn wiped frost from his beard as he checked the soil beds. "Today we see if this ground listens to us," he said, half-joking. Mira knelt beside him and ran her hand over the dark soil they had mixed with special minerals and water from the new pipes. Her fingers sank into it. It felt cold but alive. "We'll make it listen," she said. Rain carried trays of seeds, tiny brown specks that looked too small to change anything. But Mira knew better now. She had watched a single drop of water flow through metal pipes and make an empty land breathe. She believed in small things. They worked together, pressing seeds into the beds, covering them with soft dirt. Sana joined them, adjusting heat lamps and small filters to keep the air inside the dome warm and clean. As they worked, Mira noticed Aaron standing nearby, watching her with quiet eyes. He did not speak much, but he was always there checking reports, helping the engineers fix solar panels, or making sure the crew rested when they needed to. When their eyes met, he gave her a small nod that meant keep going. She liked that about him. He never said too much, but his presence made her feel strong. By midday, the greenhouse dome was warm inside. The lamps glowed softly. The crew stepped back to look at their work, rows of soil beds, small pipes bringing clean water drop by drop, heat making a safe pocket in the cold moon air. Mira sat on a crate and checked the sensor readings on her tablet. She could feel her heart beat faster every time the water numbers stayed stable. The filters were working, no leaks, no waste. Every drop counted. Suddenly, she heard light footsteps behind her. Leo peeked inside the dome, helmet off, cheeks red from running. He held something behind his back. "Mira," he called. "Look what I made." She turned, smiling. Leo pulled out a small paper flag, colored with markers. On the flag, he had drawn a sun, a moon, and a tiny green leaf. "It's for the plants," Leo said proudly. "So they know they're safe." Mira felt something warm inside her chest. She helped Leo stick the tiny flag at the end of one soil bed. For a moment, everyone in the dome watched, silent, hopeful. "Now they know," Mira said softly. "Thank you, Captain." That evening, the crew ate dinner inside the greenhouse. It felt different from the cold dome where they had slept before. Here, the air smelled faintly of warm soil and water, a promise that green life would come soon. Bryn played a soft tune on a small old guitar he had brought from Earth. Rain cracked jokes that made Sana laugh so hard she had to wipe tears from her eyes. Leo sat in Mira's lap again, half asleep but fighting to keep his eyes open. He did not want to miss anything. Mira looked around. She saw tired but happy faces. She saw frost still clinging to the outside panels. But inside there was warmth, laughter, hope. When most people drifted off to sleep, Mira stayed behind. She sat near the soil beds and checked the sensors again. She watched the tiny drops of water feeding the hidden seeds. She touched the small flag Leo had made. Aaron found her there, sitting alone in the warm silence. "You should rest," he said, voice soft. "I know." Mira answered, not looking up from the soil. I just ... I want to see the first sprout, even if it's tiny. Aaron sat down beside her. He did not speak for a while. He watched the quiet rows of soil beds too. Do you remember, he said at last, what you told me on the train? When you offered your seat? Mira blinked, surprised. She thought back. It felt like a lifetime ago, a cold day, a busy train. A tired father and his son, I said. I said you looked like you needed it more than I did, she remembered. Aaron nodded slowly. You gave something small. A simple seat, but look where that one kindness brought you. Mira turned her head to him. His eyes were kind but tired. She could see the weight he carried, the hope he held for Leo, for the crew, for this cold world they were trying to warm. You've done more than give a seat now, Aaron said. You've given us water, warmth, and a chance. I'm glad you didn't leave our life, Mira. She felt a soft flush in her cheeks. She looked back at the soil, fingers brushing over the damp dirt. I'm glad you didn't leave mine either, she said. They sat there, two people who once were strangers, now partners in something bigger than themselves. Later that night, Mira lay down near Leo. He slept soundly, his toy starship clutched in his hand. She closed her eyes, dreaming not of empty trains or cold labs, but of small green leaves pushing through soil, of laughter filling glass domes, of a cold moon slowly learning to breathe. In the silence, she promised herself she would stay until this world was ready to stand on its own. She would stay as long as they needed her. One drop, one seed, one smile at a time. Months had passed since Mira, Aaron, Leo, and the team landed on Hellas 3. The cold, gray moon that once seemed empty and lifeless now held a quiet, steady pulse. The domes had grown larger. The pipes carried water through winding paths beneath the soil, and small green leaves were pushing bravely through the earth, reaching for the weak sunlight. Mira stood outside the main greenhouse dome, her breath forming little clouds in the cold air. She watched Leo running ahead, chasing a small robotic rover that carried fresh seed trays. His laughter echoed softly, full of joy and wonder. Aaron came up beside her, wiping frost from his coat. He looked tired but content. You remember your first day here? He asked quietly. Mira smiled. How could I forget? I was so scared of this place. Aaron laughed softly. You hid it well. Mira shrugged. Because someone had to be brave. Aaron looked at her with gentle eyes. You've given us more than bravery. You gave us hope. The wind picked up, carrying the faint scent of wet soil and growing plants. Mira felt that hope deep inside her, a warmth that no cold moon could freeze. Inside the dome, the team was busy. Farmers tended to new seedlings, engineers checked the water filters, and children, some born on Hellas 3, played between rows of plants. It was a scene Mira never imagined she would see on a frozen moon. One afternoon, Mira sat at a small table with Aaron and Leo. They shared a simple meal of fresh vegetables, harvested from their growing gardens, and warm bread. Leo chattered about his day, his eyes bright with excitement. Captain Leo says the moon is not lonely anymore, Myra said, smiling at the boy. Aaron nodded. Because we made it a home. After dinner, they walked outside to the observation platform. Stars glittered above, sharper and closer than anywhere on Earth. Mira leaned against the railing, feeling the solid metal beneath her fingers. I never thought I'd find a family in a place like this, she said softly. Aaron reached out, gently squeezing her hand. You're part of our family now. Leo ran ahead, calling back, come on, there's more to see. Mira laughed, the sound warm and free. She looked at the stars and then at the faces of the people she loved, people who had come from strangers to friends, from strangers to family. The challenges had not disappeared. There were still days when the machines broke, when storms threatened. The domes, when the cold outside seemed endless. But each time they faced it together. Each problem was a chance to learn, to grow stronger. Mira remembered the day she gave up her seat on the train, the day she met Aaron and Leo. That small act had changed everything. It had brought her here, to this place, to this new life. Now, standing on the moon they were making livable, Mira knew that kindness could travel far across crowded trains, across cold moons, across the distance between hearts. The moon was no longer empty. It was alive with light, with laughter, with hope. And Mira was home.